Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's broadcast of the Aegis Champions League. We are coming at you with week number 6 of the regular season, where we've got some of our lower down on the table teams, Degenerates Azkull, taking on Nyx Esports for a little bit of posturing here in the Zon group. My name is Gordo. My camera's cut out. I'm joined tonight by TDS. TDS, how are you doing on this Friday evening?
We're now alone. Oh, okay, Gordo's back. Yeah, I was scared for a second there. Maybe I had to go. We've been joking about having to do the cast by myself because of problems that Gordo has had so far today. So hopefully it's not an indication for anything in the future.
Yeah, it's storming big time here in the Midwest right now. So we're just going to cross our fingers and hope that my internet can weather the storm very literally. It's been doing good so far, and we're going to hope it stays that way. And taking a peek over at our teams here tonight, Degenerates Azkull really with their backs up against the wall here. They're sitting at 1-4 here in the Zon group. They need to win these next 2 series if they want to try to make themselves a push into that playoff picture or have any chance of doing that at all. You know, the top 6 of the division is what actually ends up making it into that next stage. 6th place right now. They got 3 wins already. They've got 1 win on Degenerates with 2 weeks to go. That means you've got to get yourselves a couple more wins if you want to find yourself with any chance of a tiebreaker to make your way into that top 6. Nyx, they're kind of already mathematically eliminated. They're 0-5, but can still play for some experience, can still play for some posturing to not get last in the group. They can definitely move themselves up above Azkull at an absolute minimum as we are getting into the draft for game number 1 here. Already plenty of those popular junglers making an appearance.
Exactly. Plenty of champions already banned away. A lot of attention towards the jungle position, like you're pointing out. Now, even banning away the Jinx, a pick that a lot of players do like to play. They like the scaling potential. They know that she's a little bit stronger compared to where she was previously. That still leaves open Saya, which has been a much more big attention point for the AD carries, as we've seen so far. Interestingly, they banned lastly the Gragas, which I think makes a lot of sense. Flex potential peak, you can play in 3 different positions. The jungle is still open for you to take the Gragas there. So based on just the logic that we've seen so far with the jungle bans on Nyx's side, the Gragas is the most logical approach. But now that means that we have to dig deeper into the pool to try and get some of the good junglers. Well, actually, Sejuani is still available, and Maoke as well, you could argue. So we can kind of just devolve back into that old pick, man. Yeah, there it is.
There is the Sejuani. Going to be the first pick here for Evil Eyes, and a very well received one at that. You know, been playing a lot of the Vi in solo queue. That gets banned away. The Jarvan as well. But as we start to move down that list of champions that Evil Eyes has been busting out, the Sejuani does make an appearance before too long, and I still think it's very good on the current patch. It's going to get hit on the next one, but still going to be pretty strong as of right now. Lee Sin and Ornn going to be the locks in from Nyx here. Try to play a little more early in the jungle, but maybe get a little bit scaling in the top lane.
Interestingly, though, opting into taking the Ornn earlier than you typically take your top lane pick, not necessarily because it's bad. I don't think it's wrong necessarily to try and blind the top lane picks already on if you think that it might get banned away. But this gives the opportunity for the counter pick for Azkull in any way possible. We see the Gangplank coming in, so it's not a bad option. And it also means now that if you let go one of the bot lane picks that are strong enough, you can get banned out in this rotation. If you don't pick barriers, the Kaylin that are strong as well, the Saya, once again, you can get banned out and have to dig even deeper in that pool of 80 carries as well. It can be a little bit riskier in that sort of situation.
It is. This is a pick that, or a pair of picks that Degenerates Azkull, not very many teams have been letting them get these champions. The Gangplank in particular, it's Exaltry's best champ. It's what he mostly plays in solo queue. 105 games already this season. 4 bans towards the Gangplank in their last 3 series here. People do not like to let Exaltry get on this champion, but he's going to get it here in this game number 1. And the Zeri as well has been a big pick for Andox throughout the whole season, is going to get that one for himself as well. So a great first rotation for Degenerates Azkull. They've got what they were looking for. Meanwhile, Nyx going to take a page out of the books of some of the LCS teams here, locking in that Tristana super early on. Even Blind here feel like it's going to be one of the most powerful lane picks they can play through, and will be a very dangerous mid-jungle duo here with the Lee Sin.
ideally to better success compared to some of the teams in the LCS. Hopefully they can perform on it a little bit better. With that in mind though, Tristana still is a potential AD carry, right? We don't necessarily need to see her in the mid lane. There's good matchups that she can take her into the AD carry position. And if you prefer to play the engaged supports, I think Tristana is a really good AD carry to pair up because their burst potential at level 2 is always something to not scoff at all. With that in mind though, the enchanter supports that you see with Seri banned away, and then mid laners, just in case this Tristana is really not going into that position. I don't dislike this sort of bans because really they are still lacking some magical damage on the side of Nyx. So if they do go for this Tristana in the mid lane and then a normal AD carry, they are going to be quite heavily lacking in the AP position. It is an engaged support, not the one we typically see paired up with the Tristana, but not one that is necessarily bad either. Rakan has been triumphing in the current meta, has had a lot of good potential picks, and can work really well when you want to go in with champions like the Lee Sin or the Ornn. So not completely against it. Braum would be interesting though.
Yeah, saving that flex for the very end of the draft here with the lock-in of the Rakan. Lots of really powerful engage, though, to be found on the Nyx roster already. They will need to back it up. Maybe a little bit of magic damage somewhere down the line here. The Braum will be locked in for Degenerates, as now they have to pick themselves a mid lane for sure here. And we'll see what that pick is going to end up being. They need some magic damage themselves, to be honest, with the Gangplank in top and the Zeri down in bottom. They're going to lock in the Talia. Let's get a little bit of global pressure here against what might be a very powerful Lee Sin jungle if he can find his angles.
Plus the extra value of the work ground, right? Like you just put the rocks down in the floor and you stop the potential engage from essentially all the champions right now. Everyone has a dash, so you can really mess up the potential engages and potential value of some of these champions thanks to the work ground that Talia will bring forward. Really good scaling mage with the changes that she did receive, so not a bad option. It's going to be the Cassiopeia, the only champion that has no dashes on the side of Nyx. But we did talk about it, right? The flex potential on the Tristana used to its to a good degree here to try and play with the Cassiopeia here. I don't think it's necessarily a matchup that is unplayable for the Talia, and particularly if you're able to get your CC down with the Cassiopeia, which is quite feasible because Cassiopeia doesn't have a lot of mobility or a lot of ways to evade it, then you can get a lot done onto her. But at the same time, 1Q may get a really big trade on the mid lane, and the Lee Sin Cassiopeia duo is one that I think people underestimate quite a bit, because when Miasma comes down, escaping the Lee Sin is quite impossible. So it's a really good way to try and lock down targets and try and get a snowball going through the mid lane.
Absolutely here, and I like to be able to go for kind of a kite back strategy. When you've already got this Ornn on your team, you've already got the large range that Tristana is going to present coming into the late game, having that Miasma and having kind of a team identity based around kiting back here. Pretty good all across the board. You know, Lee Sin, he kind of wants to be going in a little bit more, but even he can flex around. He's got the Dragon's Rage to peel for Tristana and Cassiopeia. If they want to play that game strategy out that way, it's going to be an option for them, although you've got to be looking out for the scaling that Gangplank is going to present out of the top 100%. Lane, right? He is going to have pretty easy lane up against the Ornn. He'll definitely be able to scale up and be powerful later on. And if he can get those big barrel chains onto your backline, something like the Cassiopeia, who is herself a little bit less mobile, that could be a really big pain for Nyx to try to work their way through if they want to play this kind of kite back focused strategy.
Exactly. I think overall, composition-wise, I think both of these comps are quite similar in their intent to play the game, because they are kind of front-to-back compositions that you can play out in a really similar manner. One thing that is going to be quite different, though, is that if you go head-to-head with each of the champions, I think DEA does get ahead a little bit in the scaling department. I think that their champions overall will feel better in the late game compared to Nyx's champions. The main glaring point being that Lee Sin, because you have to get creative to try and get the maximum value out of that Lee Sin in later stages. Kick can be really good if you can hit one of the far deep in the backline targets, but even if you hit the Gangplank or the Seri, you still have the other one to kind of cover up for that potential damage that you're really playing around with. And even if the Ornn can be a really good tank, the chains like you were bringing up with the Gangplank can just mess up this champion so heavily. And not only the squishier ones like the Tristana or the Cassiopeia, but even Rakan or Lee Sin, they are not necessarily the stankiest of champions, so they can really take a big hit from one of the combos from the Gangplank if they are not careful enough.
Absolutely here. And Zeri, another one of those champions, though, that I want to be on the lookout for if they can get hosed down by this Cassiopeia just a little bit. She's pretty quick
Yeah.
in a lot of these team fights. And, the movement speed doesn't get zeroed out entirely from the miasma. But something else to note there is, right, Zeri's been in the meta for a long time. People are getting real comfortable with what aggressive angles they can take. And, they like to be pretty far out, trusting that they'll be able to get those big skates over the wall to be able to avoid any potential ganks. A miasma up against the wall does prevent that play from being made. It's not a very long range dash if you don't connect with the wall. So if there's a miasma between you and the wall, you're not going anywhere. So something to be concerned about for that Zeri, facing off against a pick that we don't get to see a whole bunch in the form of the Cassiopeia.
Well, there's few players in between that do like to bring out this sort of champions. One of them, a big fan of him, myself, APA does like to bring out the Cassiopeia and plays it to a really good degree. By the way, playing third place match in the NACL, I think this weekend. Don't want to say just
Saturday, Sunday.
This weekend. So be sure to check them out. Really good matches coming up. And it's a champion that you really need to understand how to play around her because her range is not really big, realistically, but her damage output can really mess up a lot of the champions. Even champions like Braum or Sejuani that are tankier can get really messed up by the way of playing with the Cassiopeia. So it's a champion that if you're able to hyper carry, you can certainly hyper carry it. And I really want to see Nyx playing around this Cassiopeia because I feel like more so than the Tristana, the Cassiopeia is your late game insurance policy here. Tristana can be a really good AD carry, can deal the good amount of damage later in the game as well, and she can certainly back herself up to allow for the team to get damage down. But the Cassiopeia is the main champion that you're playing around with because her value late game is so high compared to almost any other champion in the game, and you want her to feel as comfortable as possible, and I want to see Nyx playing around that factor. I also want to see the attention that the Lee Sin will try and put towards the Cassiopeia in the mid lane, and then Tristan and Rakan in the bot lane. Because realistically, I don't think you want to visit top lane at all. Ornn is Ornn. Even though he can kill champions, he's still the tank, relatively. So you have to put attention to your carry sources instead of the tank in the top lane.
You absolutely do here, because if you can't get those guys rolling, it's going to become a major problem to try to deal with the multitude of damage sources that Degenerates are bringing to the table here. Now, those Ornn upgrades, though, they'll get your Tristana and Cassiopeia a little bit of an extra boost as you start to get into that later game, though. Want to see those Ornn upgrades come through. So it's important to get XP into the Ornn, but maybe not as important to, try to camp up there and get him kills. But if you want to go for a shutdown gangplank strategy, it is something you can do, but it's definitely not going to set you up the way you want. I think that Nyx definitely wants to be playing through bottom lane, especially in this early game. The Tristana early kill lanes are still very prominent. They're still something that can absolutely get you an advantage against a lane like Zeri Braum if they aren't prepared and aren't stopping those good angles from coming through, especially with a Lee Sin in the jungle. So that's what I'm going to be looking for out of Nyx, and I'm going to be looking to see if they can respond to it effectively on the side of Azkull here, if Evil Eyes can get their way down into the bot lane, counteract these ganks, act as a neutralizer for the Lee Sin. That's something you can do on Sejuani, and it's something that I expect to come out in this early game.
100%. I want to see this Sejuani being active, not necessarily in the same way as the Lee Sin with continuously ganking, but more so denying those potential ganks. Can be much more ideal, can be much more effective. And one thing that I do want to point into the bot lane, because I think that it's going to be a dynamic that we don't typically see. Seri particularly is an AD carry that plays with Enchanter supports much more consistently than any other type of supports. You see them buffing her up, trying to give her the strength. So the Braum, even though he does have the shield to protect her, it's not going to be the same dynamic, the same way you play with those Enchanter supports. But at the same time, it makes ganks for the Sejuani or fights for the Sejuani a little bit easier, because with the melee support value, you get the passive a little bit easier. And you can try and go for disengages and engages in a much more effective manner than with those Enchanter support. So it's going to be a different dynamic, not something that we typically see with the Seri, but something that you can make work just because of how those two champions can interact with themselves, and Seri being a really good hyper carry right now in the meta.
For sure, and we are getting loaded onto the Rift here, so we should be ready to transition over to the game in just about a moment here. Reminder of the stakes here: Degenerates Azkull, they have got to win their next two series to have even a shot at making playoffs, so they've got a lot on the line here. Nyx already eliminated, but are certainly looking to get themselves some more experience, get themselves a little bit of posturing coming into perhaps the next season of ACL. If if they want to maybe make some roster changes, maybe and run it back with these same guys, maybe move around to other teams for individuals on this roster. So plenty to play for both sides here. Nonetheless, as Degenerates maybe a little bit more, as they definitely don't want, neither team wants to end last in the group, but Degenerates would like to even go further in the tournament if they can manage to get themselves a way to do so. I hear some spawns in the background, TDS, so we are on to the Rift for game number 1 of Degenerates Azkull up against Nyx Esports.
And it's going to start. I just wanted to quickly point out as well, a little bit more pressure on the side of DEA, because like you're pointing out, they still have a chance. Nyx doesn't have a chance really to mathematically be able to get to that 6th spot. So maybe they are playing a little bit more freely, knowing that it's not do or die for them. They can just try and get it better or just improve a little bit better as players show themselves. So it could be a type of game where Nyx just plays as freely as possible, and DEA may commit some mistakes or even force some plays that they feel desperately need to, because they are still in the running, right? It's the kind of different mentality that you can get because of the stakes that you are going with.
Something to be paying attention to here. You see first items coming out here. It is going to be the sword and refillable potion start for Exaltry, so definitely feeling confident going up against this Ornn in the early game. Knows that it's not one of those gangplank counter picks where you're really going to put pressure on him, stop him from scaling into the early game. He should be feeling pretty safe as long as he keeps his distance from the Bellows Breath. Feels like he will be able to have that big influence in this game as long as they don't get blown out too early on. And a lot of that's going to come down into this bottom lane, where Kakma and Mike Nike are looking to set up at level 1 here. Staying in Fog of War thus far, but are ready to take a fight if they can.
I would have loved to see a level 1 fight. I understand why they are not going for it, but at least it seems like both teams starting pretty equal. Jungler's going to be pathing into the opposite side, so the game plan for the Lee Sin kind of what we expected, right? The fact that he's going to path towards bot side to try and benefit this bot lane a little bit more, shut down the Seri, give resources to the Tristana, makes a lot of sense. And on the other side, I'm actually surprised that Evil Eyes opted into this. Not a bad idea to give resources to the GP. It's not like it's not going to work out in your favor if you're able to get it effectively. But I feel like answering the Lee Sin probably would benefit you much more, because at the end of the day, if you deny early ganks and then deny early resources to the Tristana, then they kind of lose out on a lot of the damage for their early part of the game.
You absolutely do here. Oh, we'll see what Wigglecat can get done. They start off this early game on the top side, are actually looking for this early gank onto Exaltry's Gangplank. Is up pretty far here. Toxic Sub is immediately moving up, getting ready to just try to get the CC. Flash away from Exaltry, dodges the Sonic Wave. Exaltry will survive gank number 1.
Wigglecat is still over here with Evil Eyes coming in.
All right, going to look for the stun, and actually gets the flash out of the Lee Sin there. So great play by Evil Eyes. Going to get an early advantage in the jungle matchup thanks to that one, as not how you want your first gank of the game on Lee Sin to go, TDS. Oh, but that's a big double knockup, actually turning it right back around. Wigglecat not dissuaded by the lack of flash. Gonna pick up first blood to Toxic Sub, and now Exaltry left all alone. He thought he had his jungler with him, but now he's in a 1 versus 2, and it's gonna get taken down for a double kill. Great start for Nyx Esports.
And great first gank coming in from the side of Nyx. It was looking like maybe it was just going to end up being a 1-for-1 in the flash department, but the force of the play by Toxic Sub there. And it's not necessarily bad what DA were doing. They were trying to push the wave so that the GP can get a free back or a free bounce back and into his position, and he doesn't have to worry that much about the jungler. But the execution is what you have to always argue about in these positions. Great play there by Toxic Sub, doing a really nice easy engage with the Ornn, and sets up perfectly for the first kill. Evil Eyes cannot get away out of that play, dies really easily, and really good first attempt coming in from the side of Nyx. This may end up just being now a situation where Toxic Sub gets left alone in top lane with that win, and then you now can focus the rest of resources down there in the bot side.
And toxic perhaps, but a great start in the top lane for Nyx here, as they've been rotating through top laners all season long, trying to find somebody that really works in with this roster, and a great start for what I believe is Toxic Sub's first week, unless it's a name change here. So really good performance so far in this game, and number 1, we'll see how they're able to progress from there, as Pops Takes quite a bit of damage there from good trade from Potato Senpai.
Potato doing a really good amount of damage. Wait, Listen is still here, so I'm not sure if this is the best of trades DA can take. Yeah, they are disengaging.
Yeah, wow. Oteg really minimizing damage there with the Unbreakable. Stops a lot of that stacking damage up from the Tristana. Now Wigglecat still all over the place, still just level 3. They've been going for ganks all game long. Good dodge from Pops will save their life, but they are still pretty low, and will probably have to expend that TP soon.
So really like the proactiveness from Wigglecat. Realistically, you are not going to contest this run in terms of team fighting prowess, so trying to play this early game as aggressive as possible to set your team up for success is the way that I really like to see the Lee Sin being played, and doing an amazing job at that. Yes, he hasn't got more kills after those 2 first ones in the top lane, but keeping the pace of the game in your favor, keeping the ganks going as much as possible, it's going to benefit your team in the long run if you're able to get ganks or at least flashes blown. It's going to be a 3v3 down here though.
Kokoma going nice in dodge. Here. It's going to be Evil Eyes stepping up though. 3 versus 3 in the bot lane. Stun does come through onto the Tristana, but Oteg is going to have to back away. Nobody going to end up going down here, but that's that neutralizing play from Evil Eyes though, means that Wigglecat can't get more done, and they're already so behind on farm and XP that just making the gank not work out is going to be a little bit of a win for DEA.
And that is kind of the other side of the coin, right, that you get with Lee Sin, and this sort of playstyle with the Lee Sin. It's not bad if it does work, and I'm glad that Wigglecat is actually committing for this, but if it doesn't work out, you do end up getting quite behind of the enemy jungler. And it was a really nice read by Evil Eyes to understand that there was really no potential play on other places. It was mainly the bot lane that you have to respond to, and perfectly goes in and stops it. They do get the exhaust off of the Braum, which you could argue it's a small victory, but it's still not what you were expecting to get. Pop's coming down.
Pop's coming in, going to throw down the Weaver's Wall. Nice dodge away from the Kokoma. They are going to move themselves underneath the turret. Will be pretty safe here. Oh, not too much out of the first Talia ult of the game, and going to be dropping a wave in mid for that. So good job to play defensively there from Nyx on the bottom side.
I'm curious, in what part did Pops utilize the W there? Because I didn't see like the pop coming out of the ground to push someone into it. And it was off, and it was on cooldown, so it had to use it, but I didn't see it actually.
Did not catch it myself, but nonetheless, not going to be anything to cash out on here. Pops will be present for this wave now, but is starting to fall behind Potato Senpai due to that time commitment down bottom, down about a wave worth of CS here as more gets denied underneath the turret. Really well played by the Cassiopeia in this lane so far with the level advantage, really pushing their lead up against the Talia.
You can really see the amount of damage that Cassiopeia does, even with just this few items and not even being like level 13 or 14. She's dealing so much damage to Pops in the mid lane, has to force the Talia back quite a bit, and ends up making it so that you have to be extra careful about how far forward you go, because like we were speaking, with that amount of damage, any combo from Lee Sin can just end up killing you really quickly.
Definitely can. It looks like Wigglecat looking around on the top side like they might start up this Rift Herald. They do have the priority from Ornn crashing a big wave up top side. You know that nobody's on it, and they are going to start that objective up. Will be a nice influx of gold to a Nyx Esports roster that already is 1K up from their early game lead. Very nice start for them if they are able to pick this one up.
And it really feels like a lot of that comes from this consistently good top lane so far, going in with Toxic top. Even though the name is Toxic, it's doing a really good job in that top lane with the Ornn. 2 kills plus a really big CS advantage. Apart from that, the play that he just received is a big part of their gold lead, even though the other lanes are not necessarily that far ahead, and actually in the jungle they are behind. The top lane is doing so well. Something that maybe we weren't expecting. We just kind of thought that the Ornn was going to be left in the island and let go in that sense, right?
Yeah, and I mean, probably didn't have to be this way, right? Exaltry avoided the first gank. Like, makes sense to maybe pay a visit towards top at level 3. That's just how your Lee Sin path ends up going. And you could try to cash yourself out a little bit of gold. But the turnaround up against Evil Eyes, who attempts to kind of provide a little bit of relief up there, means that it's actually a big lead for Toxic Sub, and that kind of incentivizes Wigglecat to come back. You know, you've already cashed out, you got yourself the Rift Herald, now there's a lot of turret plates down, now Exaltry's up too far, and it could be another kill. Flash away from Exaltry. Toxic Sub actually missed the recast on Call of the Forge God there, but You know, you can just say it was flashed away from, right? If you get the summoner spell, it doesn't really matter where your abilities ended up going.
Does that count as a caster curse because we were giving props to Toxic Sub?
It's not a misplay if you get the flash, man. You know, you could have thrown that Call of the Forge God absolutely perfectly, and Exaltry still would have flashed away from it. But now here comes another Weaver's Wall down to the bottom lane. Good Buster shot to knock them back. Is now Mike and Ike doing a good job of interfering with any attempts to put out more damage. Kokomo actually wants to turn this back around, stacking up the explosive shot on Andox, who will have to back out up against into that alcove there. And will mean that it's a pretty even trade all around, and they don't get much out of the Weaver's Wall at all. But Toxic Sub turning it around topside again. Here comes the Glacial Fissure, though, and in a 3 versus 1. I don't think Orin's tanky enough quite yet, TDS. Shut down. Gonna go over to Evil Eyes.
Yeah, a little bit too much you see up there in the top lane. I like the aggressiveness, don't get me wrong. I think Toxic Sub trying to go for the play that they thought was going to net them at least an equal trade, right? Because probably was going to die anyway to the 3-man gang. So went aggressive, tried to get the kill on Exaltry, doesn't work out that well, but at least there was an attempt, and I respect that. On the other side of the map, you can see the Rip Herald down on mid lane, so they gave a lot of gold to this Cassiopeia, and then down here in the bot side. The gank didn't work. The Talia ultimate realistically didn't accomplish much. I really liked how both Kog'Maw and Mike Knight played that out, because Sonars were not used at all. Ooh, Wigglecat.
Sonic Wave lands, but I don't think that's one that you want to take. Wigglecat will instead safeguard back to their ally in the mid lane, or in the bot lane rather, and will get themselves out of there in time. Big CS lead building up for Kokomo down here, though. Already 20 CS up, 10 CS lead in mid. CS leads across the board here. Even Wigglecat has caught up from their deficit early on, and it's all piling together for what is a pretty sizable gold lead for Nyx.
Honestly, doing a really good job with that gold lead they got. The important members that needed the gold lead, actually getting the gold is really, really important. And Kog'Maw particularly hasn't gotten any kills or anything like that, but the pressure that they got and the fact that they got a tower played, the CS advantage, everything going in their favor so far is really, really good for Nyx. Maybe that is a lot of damage.
It's a big Ornn right on top of Exaltry here, falling pretty far behind now. Evil Eye is going to try to give some relief up here, but Toxic Sub's 2 levels up on him, and I don't know if they have the damage to actually take out this Ornn. He's already got the Jock Show completed, kiting back, channeling the Call of the Forge God. Nice stopwatch, going to stop the knockup from coming through, and Pops has got the last bit of damage they need. That's going to be the second kill of the game, going over to DEA, and some turret plates to get Exaltry back into it.
They play with the overconfidence from Toxic Sub. Really good roam coming in from the Talia this time around. She does get the kill, which is a good sign. I think she did get the kill, which is a good thing for them to get even a little bit closer to this Cassiopeia in the mid lane. And yes, Toxic Sub may have ended up giving up a kill and probably some plates up there in the top lane. But in reality, like, it's not the worst of situations. Wait, Wigglecat.
Oh, doesn't quite land the Sonic Wave, and that probably means you won't have enough damage, but actually does have the ulti, is sitting on it, and will just take him out. Wigglecat with a solo kill in the top lane picks up Exaltry.
Now you wish that Exaltry had the 2 kills from the Wade Potato. Ooh, nice
pretty
touch.
Far here. There's going to be the stun. They do get the pushback off of the seismic shove, and this should be a kill. One more swing gonna do it for Evil Eyes. They even things up yet again, and a lot of the gold leads starting to disappear here, TDS. Kokomo going to try to turn it around and build it back up in the bottom lane. Dives in onto Otag, who survives with just a sliver, but now Andox in a 1 versus 2 gets hit by the knockup. Kokomo dives in, gets 1 reset. What about the second one? Going to use it to try to escape, but Andox is going to be able to chase him and take him down. Now, the 1 versus 2, Zeri can do this all day long. Mike and Ike going to have to dash out to safety.
They were overconfident with their damage output. It was really close. It could have been a different situation if Kog'Maw doesn't commit for the kill on the Braum, but it still focuses on the Zeri. Because at the point where Kog'Maw jumped in, Zeri was exhausted. You actually can outdeal her damage at that point, especially with Kraken Slayer when Zeri didn't have the shield but completed, just now gets it. Really, really close. A couple of decisions here and there could have made that different. But, oh, Toxic Sub again. He really wants a solo kill.
Exaltry on the wrong side once again, steps into the Call of the Forge God that gives you that little bit of extra damage. But again, Pops PH is here to bail out their top laner and are going to chase their way down onto Toxic Sub. Lots of rocks coming in here. Not quite enough damage to work their way through this tanky Ornn. And the Bellows Breath does immune the CC. Pretty clutch there. OTEG now going to be the next target as Wigglecat has made another visit towards the bottom lane, but will be able to escape thanks to the Unbreakable.
No kills ends up happening. Luckily for Exaltry, Toxicsoft really trying as hard as possible to get those kills going. And I was also going to commit a bit just because I really thought Potato Senpai could have played that out so well. Like, he actually did to a certain degree, but the desire for the ultimate, if he just continues with the Q and the E, I think probably can get the kill just because of the movement speed that you get plus the extra damage. The ultimate does make it so that you can get free time hitting, but at the same time puts you in the same spot. So if you get yourself left out like that, gives the opportunity for the Sejuani to turn around like she did and end up getting the kill. Really close once again, but I like the mechanical outplays here and there that we're seeing, the small ones that end up mattering in the context of a kill overall.
And what they've gotten done in the top lane the last couple of minutes for DEA really closes out the gold gap there. They pick up the Rift Herald, they pick up solo first turret gold onto Pop's PH, and gold lead's gone, TDS. It's only about 500 in the favor of Nyx now. That is pretty much nothing compared to the nearly 3K that it was a couple of minutes ago. Now, Exaltry, as long as they can avoid getting picked up by this Lee Sin once again, looks like everything gonna go back to pretty much even. It's a slight lead for Kokma on the bottom lane, slight lead for Pops, but other than that, nothing to write home about.
I feel the biggest issue. Oh, Exaltry.
Oh, gonna caster curse that one maybe a little bit as they step up a little bit too far and are now once again being ganked and going to get taken out here by Toxic Sub before too long. Will they give the kill to Wigglecat? No, they want to snowball this Ornn. They want to give all the gold to him they can. 2 ultimates being committed here. Pops is going to try to bail them out yet again, but Toxic Sub will pick up the kill. And now Pops finds himself melee range up against this very strong Ornn. Look at this damage coming out. Somehow the Sonic Wave doesn't land though, and Evil Eyes goes on a killing spree as he takes out his counterpart of the jungle. But Potato has arrived, throws down the Noxious Blast, and is looking to pump out damage. Miasma slowing down Evil Eyes is going to have to throw out the Glacial Prison just to kite backwards, and it's going to end as just a 1-for-1.
It ends up being a 1-for-1, but it really could have been a 1-for-nothing, or at least forcing a little bit of a better situation for DEA. Pops out of the ultimate on the other side of the wall instead on the side of the gangplank. Really makes a difference there because he cannot make use of most of the damage in that position. Forces the gangplank in the bad part.
Dive in the bottom lane, double Glacial Fissure. Will it be enough to work their way through the exhaust? It just might. His burst fires are raining through, and Mike and Ike is going to be the first one to drop. The assistance of the cannon barrage makes plenty of difference, as that's a double kill over to Andox, and DEA turn it all around in the bot lane.
They had blood in their eyes. They wanted to get the kill so heavily, and it ends up turning on their backs. This is the sort of value that we like to see from the Braum. The shield denies so much burst damage coming in from the Tristana. You cannot destroy this area as soon as possible because the shield just eats everything up. And she still has shield bow yet to pop out.
Big ol' diving in here, but they're 1 versus 3. They're not going to be able to do much to stop this Rift Herald. If the turret drops, it might be a little bit of danger, but the turret does survive. They can't quite output the damage to take it out here and now. Wigglecat just going to clear out the big crab and will be able to resume their previous activities, moving their way over towards mid here. Exaltry just cannot catch a break.
They don't like Sultry. That's the main issue so far for DEA. They are putting as much pressure as they can on this gangplank, which makes sense, but when you really look at the bigger picture, right? Yes, Exaltry is in a bad spot, but the series is in so much of a better spot compared to that. Like, she's 3-0.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Andox is cashing out on it. He's pretty happy. He's thanking Exaltry for his sacrifice for the cause, but the rest of it, not having quite as good of a time. He's going to have to be careful here. Evil Eyes does catch where they are. A nice bait there from Wigglecat. Gets an Arctic Assault into the team, but they don't quite have everybody in position to capitalize.
It's just to send a message. It's that I will go with the Lean Syndrome just to bait you out. It doesn't net them anything. It's just for the laughs, but it's still kind of funny to see.
Yeah, a couple of people in different positions, and that could have mattered a lot. This time does not, as they are going to look at this dragon spawning in about 45 seconds. It's got a lot of vision in this area of the map. There's 3 control wards in this bottom river that my eyes spy here, TDS, as well as a bunch of other wards going throughout the rest of the jungle. Nyx really want to get their dragon stacking started again.
That's a lot of vision committing commitment there. And don't get me wrong, I like when teams want to be secured about objectives, but like there's 1 or 2 extra wards there that you really don't need to play around with, and could have been extra gold that you can allocate elsewhere, particularly the pink wards. But this will at least secure them, that they have not only control of this river, but like you're pointing out, if they want to get control over Drakes, this is the best way to try and set it up.
Yeah, I mean, they're committing a lot of resources for it, and nobody's in topside for either team, so it doesn't matter too much. Toxic stepping up here. That is going to be the Glacial Fissure to try to dissuade the engage, but they find their way onto Exaltry, and Kokwa just gonna melt right through him. A flash over the wall is necessary from Pops to keep themselves safe from this Rakan's quickness engage, and it's now a 5 versus 4. Nyx, they've got themselves their man advantage, they've got themselves their vision advantage, and they are ready to start up onto the Dragon.
They committed quite a bit of ultimates to that, particularly the Charm and the Flash. Actually, they just committed the Charm and the Flash, so yeah, this is not going to be an easy attempt at stealing. I like the decision making here for DEA much better. Trying to take this mid lane turret, push them away as much as possible, and then run away as a team. This is a better decision. It's still just the 3rd dragon of the game. It's not like they get a massive boost thanks to this dragon. And also, in terms of rolling the dice for Dragon Souls, this is one of the easier ones to fight back against. So it's not like you're worried about giving up a couple of them, or even the soul. Like that, this is not a game-winning soul that you're worried about.
Yeah, my guys are getting cross-mapped in mid lane. Nobody's in topside for either team, but they do manage to still get themselves that mid lane turret in trade for that dragon. And Nyx, they're going to have to do that a lot of times without falling too far behind for them to really see a lot of results from managing to stack up this Chemtech Drake. Meanwhile, DEA, they get the gold right away, and they've now built themselves up to a 2k gold lead.
This really is this sort of game where you go top lane. What's that? That doesn't work. It's just that sort of thing. They ignore top lane until they can go for the minions, and then once again, as soon as dragon spawns, it's again forget top lane. Oh, okay. Just
as far as I'm concerned, it's Twisted Tree Line, baby. We got 2 lanes on the bottom side. Got 1 river in between them, 1 objective sitting between those 2 lanes, and that's all we got to worry about. Potato getting aggressive onto Exaltry here, chunks him to about half HP, lands another Noxious Blast. This is a tough matchup for the Gangplank. Not doing well here. This 2-item Cassiopeia just melting through the health bar. Evil Eyes looking at mid, dashes forward, gets the dash out of Kokma, and that's all that's to be said there.
It's a small victory, but it's a victory because now Tristana has to wait till that dash is back. The one that is not feeling any victory is Exaltry. He can die here if he's not careful. Yeah.
Well, that's the flash blown in the one-on-one. They're going to try to go aggressive here. Glacial Prison goes wide, doesn't find its target, and now here comes Wigglecat looking for a big kickback into the team. Can't find it onto Andox, who's popped the ultimate and is just going to be able to rain down the damage. Andox, still untouched, gets exhausted, but is not going to take any damage for it. Goes on a rampage, dashing forward, flashes after Kokma, but is just going to have to settle for Toxic Sub. But nonetheless, this is going to be a 3-0 team fight. Potato Senpai trying to be a hero and turn it around, but only gets the support. It's a 4-for-1 team fight for Degenerates Azkull.
Either you die a hero or you live long enough to become a villain. Potato Senpai didn't get a chance to do anything, so he doesn't even get to be a hero or a villain, just dies in that fight. But that was such a good timing from DEA to play it out. They missed on the Sejuani ultimate and a couple of cooldowns here and there. But the important part is the way that they fought it out. It was a 4v4, realistically. The main difference, Potato Senpai doesn't have teleport. Exaltry has the ultimate, so it doesn't really matter if Exaltry and Potato Senpai are on the other side of the map. When you just pop the ultimate from the Gangplank from anywhere, and you can just get value even if the Gangplank is not there. It ends up working out so perfectly for DA. At the end, I do think he ends up teleporting in, so they do get the numbers advantage, or the equal numbers at the end when the Cassiopeia does come in. But Cassiopeia also arrives way too late for that fight. She needs to be there at the start for them to get the extra value, the value that she provides, because she's so far ahead in this game. But as you can see in this fight, 4v4 with Gangplank ultimate, Seri thrives in these situations. She's untouched through all of that.
They recognize the threat too. They throw down the exhaust, but it just doesn't matter. The exhaust can't last the whole fight. Eventually, Zeri's going to be able to do Zeri things, and Zeri things she does.
Look at that shield.
Yeah, a lot of work.
It's so awful to play like that as a Cassiopeia, because you know that most of your damage is going to get denied. So even though you can deal a lot of that damage as the Cassiopeia, you can be the carry of the team. If the Braum is in a good spot, or isn't even any spot close to you, you're just going to get denied completely. And that was even worse because there was nobody to follow you up. So if you don't get damage, you're dead.
For sure, and then cashing in for a Baron and some turrets off the back of that Baron means the DEA going to have a substantial lead now, nearly 6k gold in the lead, and going to be looking to get it even higher as they push on to this bot inner turret. A little bit of a defense being staged by Nyx here, but they got to be very careful of the barrel chains, and Evil Eyes is still hovering on the side. They do have 5 members. Looks like Pops is going to make this a 5 versus 5. They move on to Wigglecat. Here it comes, the Weaver's Wall to cut off the rest of the team. They're going to land the Glacial Fissure there. They're going to knock up Mike and Ike and look to take him out, but can't quite get the damage through here. Toxic Sub, though, left all alone, going to have to Searing Charge their way out. And it's a health bar lead for DEA, and they should be able to succeed in this siege.
And they can, Pops can try and go for over the wall. I was thinking, Pops, you can flash here and actually force a play, but no, doesn't go for the more hyphy play, goes for the more controlled one. They did get the turret thanks to the amount of damage that they were able to deal, and those barrel chains are just going to become more dangerous the longer the game goes on. By the way, we were talking about this, Gordo, just a quick pan towards top lane. Guess what's there? Nothing, just minions pushing.
Just minions playing their own game up there. It's going to be a big wave for Toxic Sub to cash in on, you know? It's kind of like an extra jungle camp, one might say.
Literally.
But, yeah, Exaltry, as you said, getting to be strong in this game. Might be 0-4, but those 9 assists, plus just all of the extra gold you get to farm up on the Gangplank, is managing to get them into their 3rd item already, and does mean that those barrels are going to hurt, even if the scoreline doesn't.
They really are going to be quite showy, and I'm kind of glad for Exalter because they have been putting a lot of pressure towards him. The times we've gone towards that Gangplank, it's either he's getting ganked or he's taking way too much damage.
Yep, that's been the story of the game in some ways, but does mean that they've gotten to play aggressively towards the other side of the map, and you know that's the other side of the Gangplank sword, right? You get to either farm up safely up against the Ornn all day long, or they come up, they camp you on Lee Sin, they get a bunch of kills into the Ornn, and then it doesn't matter because they're kills on an Ornn. So exactly. DEA, they're going to be pretty happy with this result, even if their top laner didn't get to pop off on his main.
That's kind of the good thing about having multiple carries, right? The fact that one may be down, but if you're able to put your X in the right spot, you still will get the value out on the other side of the map. That's why I wasn't sure if putting that much pressure onto Toxic Sub was necessarily good, because a lot of your damage is on Potato and Kog'Maw, not on the Ornn. The Ornn is going to be the mid shield, but you really need Kog'Maw to pop off. You need Potato Senpai to pop off, and so far they haven't been getting the opportunities to be able to pull that off. Meanwhile, the series just dashing, rushing, killing, and electrifying around the field.
Oh, here Evil Eyes dashing forward, finding Potato here. Wigglecat going to have to use the Dragon's Rage just to get them to safety. Now here comes Weaver's Wall, going to cut them off, but Mike and Ike up here a little bit too far, has no backup, has to dash back over the wall to meet up with Kog'Maw, and this is a fight on 2 fronts, but DEA, they managed to stay together as a 4-man squad and push back Potato Senpai once again. Meanwhile, Exaltry working on the bottom lane. Call of the Forge God committed to try to at least clear out this wave and should stop the push for the time being, but that's going to be a big engage tool that will not be up for a while.
Well, it's kind of a 1-for-1 in terms of ultimates, right? Because Gangplank ultimate was used on the top side. Ooh, re-engage?
Well,
I don't think you get much here.
Far. Yeah, they will end up backing away from one another. Right. There is no Baron buff, though. There's nothing to bump up these minions, so they're going to be able to clear it out pretty easily for the side of Nyx. I don't think this top inner turret is quite on the menu yet, DEA, and they will have to back away before too long.
I kind of think that they're not going to get anything up here. Like maybe a little bit of cheap damage. Oh, wait, it's 4v3.
Yeah, that's the risk. Pops is hovering around on the other side, sees Kog'Maw, does manage to knock him back in, and that's going to be a huge chunk of damage. Flash over the wall to try to close it out. Still burning down to the Leandry's damage, but Kog'Maw will get out in time. But now the top lane inner turret, that's been the target all along, TDS, and it's still getting defended as Evil Eyes gets so much damage pumped into him off the back of that knockup. But Potato Senpai now nowhere left to go, getting rain damage down on by Pops on the other side, trying to step forward, trying to land the Twin Fangs, but the matched damage from the other carries are just too dangerous. And with blinking health bars and Exaltry split pushing in mid lane, surely Nyx Esports has to back away. They're sending 3 members over to Exaltry to answer them. Will they be able to net him? They do get the knockup there off of the Ornn, but they finally lose the top lane inner turret, TDS.
Let's go. It took long. really long, but they finally get the top lane turret. But that was a situation where I thought Mix can try and fight it. Petrifying Gaze hit perfectly onto the Seri. I thought there was going to be commitment there, but Toxic Sop is not close by. The Lee Sin is not close by either to go for the kick, and it's just the Cassiopeia and Magna, which I think got stopped by the Sejuani. So you don't really get enough follow-up to go into that play. Andox is just messing around with everyone, hitting the shots from really far, and this is the sort of opportunities that you have to take advantage of, because even though Sultry didn't get the inhibitor, still was playing perfectly with the PvE, getting the inhibitor turret, forcing everyone to rotate into his position, and then forcing the turret out. That's the sort of thing that you want to be able to force. You're doing Baron, by the way.
We are two-manning Baron right now, everybody, as DEA just working on it here with just Exaltry and Evil Eyes, and yeah, it's gonna go down. Nyx has no idea that this is going on. There it goes. Another big influx of gold for DEA and a Baron buff for the next couple of minutes. And now they can rotate down just in time for Dragon. Nyx Esports, caught completely unaware, have no answer.
It's kind of hard to say why they don't have an answer, since you can see the vision clearly. They have complete control over that side, but that also comes from the push previously that they pulled off. They got control over the top side thanks to the turret finally being down, and they just get control here. The bottom side is not that important, since, like we were talking about, Soul is not that big. Engage though.
Aurelia's is pop. They are looking for this fight. They get the two-man knock-up. A nice ult on Mike and Ike's engaged, though, off the Glacial Prison, and Andox goes unstoppable as he's once again untouched in this fight. Coco trying to rain damage down on the Sejuani over the wall, but it's a Sejuani TDS. He just tanks it up all day long, and there's a triple kill going over to Andox as they wipe this fight 5-0, and Degenerates Azkull are going to look to take game number 1.
It's a 5-0, and it turns into just a final push for the side of DEA. Forget the Dragon, we don't care about those things. They win the team fight, and they are going to force themselves into ending the first game. Really good playstyle overall coming in from DEA. Nyx had good things, don't get me wrong. Like, I think they played out their initial minutes really nicely with the focus that they have to get a little bit of pressure to topside, but I feel like they lacked on the pressure on the remaining side of the map. The Tristana and the Cassiopeia needed to be a little bit more well treated to be more valuable in the game, and at the end we saw it. They were lacking damage in a lot of those instances.
Agree with you there, TDS. You need to have a top laner that can make the most out of that gold if you're going to look to play towards the top side that much. They do shut down the gangplank, but that's a ticking time bomb that you're not going to be able to stop. Dude gets bonus gold from the minions that he kills. He's going to eventually have enough money to buy up his items and to be that split-pushing threat. And the Ornn, meanwhile, can't do too much with what he's built up. And, you know, shout out to the gangplank there. It is going to, in fact, be Exaltry leading the damage charts by the end of it.
Doing a really good job. Well, you get extra boosts for those crits and the barrel combo, so
you do.
It's kind of a little bit like cheating, especially because he was also going against the Ornn, right? So you get extra damage there, but he did a good job in this game, taking all the pressure and putting himself aside so that the Seri could be the main carry, and that is still a big important strength to have. Like, understanding your role in the game, even if you're playing a carry, if you're getting too focused, you can get yourself on the side so that the rest of the team can really shine. And I think the gangplank this game did a really amazing job, allows for DEA to end up winning and putting themselves one step closer to getting the victory in the series.
Absolutely, and they are going to be halfway there now. We will still have at least one more game tonight for Nyx to try to change up their strategy, see if they can take a more aggressive top laner and try to play through top, or if they can take a similar tank and maybe try to give some resources elsewhere on the map. We'll see what they want to do when we get into draft for game number 2. We're going to throw to a quick break here to do just that, but we will see you on the other side.
Every time I close my eyes, a little less of you remains. I know you're slipping further from me now. Am I too far away?
Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast of the Aegis Champions League. Our series is just starting to get heated up here as Degenerates Azkull take themselves a convincing game number 1, recovering from a solid early game out of Nyx Esports, but not quite enough to close things out. Going to be on the same sides here for game number 2. We'll have to see what Nyx Esports are bringing to the table to try to come back in this series.
Exactly. It's on them to try and turn around the situation. I don't think they played necessarily bad at a lot of those situations, but at the end, it really primed the difference in damage on some of the main carries. And the fact that I think they scaled better overall. The Gangplank was going to have a lot of value anyway in the later stage of the game. We began seeing the Lee Sin falling off a little bit more compared to where he was earlier on. He couldn't really get the damage or the engages going. And then we saw the value of the composition as well, right? The shield from the Braum, the Talia were ground denying some of those engages. So a lot of the things that could go wrong ended up going in favor of the side of DEA, and then for Nyx, sadly, it went wrong from them, like we were kind of expecting to a certain degree. But I feel like they can play it. Like the early game you were pointing out was really, really good from them, and I think they had really good shining moments that coming to the next game with maybe a better set of champions for what they want to do probably can pull it off.
Yeah, like to see a potentially different ban approach here from Nyx. I mean, they ban out 3 junglers, and they still end up having to play up against the Sejuani here from Evil Eyes.
Yeah.
Feels like Sejuani's still real good, man. I don't know that you necessarily gained yourself too much ground with the Vi, Jarvan, Gragas bans. Maybe dedicate one of those towards the Sejuani if you really want to focus jungle, and see, you know, let the Jarvan through or something as an option that maybe will fall off eventually and not be quite as valuable coming to this later game. But instead, they're going to target the Jhin as a little bit of a pivot.
It's a change from the bans in the previous game. Now, the Jhin is not one of the biggest mid AD carries right now. I'm honestly not even a fan of the champion as of now. It feels like for a lot of the things that end up being played right now, he's really not that much valuable compared to other AD carries or other champions. So kind of weird, but maybe it's more of a specific sort of ban, right? Something that we do see happen from time to time. The Jinx stay the same. So DEA, pretty similar bans from the first game, and then now the Suri. They don't want to be going against that once again. I understand it was really impactful in the previous game, but it does give the opportunity now for the other champions that you kind of want to prioritize, like the Gragas, to get picked here.
Yeah, pointing over towards Andox now, who had a great game number 1, going to look to throw them off their comfort. Gragas going to be the lock-in for DEA. That was banned away in game number 1 and is likely going to be going for Evil Eyes. That's where they've put it when they've drafted it over the last couple of weeks, but is still that flex pick between top and mid as well.
Yeah. Exactly. Gives you the flexibility potential. Even if you think or you've seen that one player plays the most, it's still a chance that you can just put it in another position and you get the value of the championing to other positions and get another champion there to cover it up. Orange stays the same, so I think they want to have something comfortable in the top lane, something that doesn't need a lot of like teamwork for it to work out really effectively, and something that doesn't need a lot of resources once again, so that they then can commit to the rest of the map, right? With that in mind though, they need champions that can accommodate to that. Something like a Varus wouldn't be a bad option if you're going to commit down there. Saya, much better hyper carry, something that if you give resources to, can work out really, really well. And also, in case they want to play away from the bot lane, it's an AD carry that can be saved by herself. So it does allow for a little bit more variation in how you can play the game with the Saya.
Yeah, I really like that you could now blind the Xayah for the side of Nyx and not worry too much about the Rakan coming through for Degenerate's Azkull. They could still take the Rakan, but you know, the best pairings with Rakan in this current meta, they're the Xayah and the Zeri, and one of them's now taken away and the other one is banned. So you can go other stuff, right? You can play like Rakan Ezreal and, you know, or just try Rakan with whatever your pick of the litter of AD carry marksman is, but those are the most classic pairings. Those are the ones that people are actively seeking out for their Rakans, and DEA doesn't even end up going for it here, and they instead lock that Ashe, who is now even more so than previously a flex pick between ADC and support, as they've really been trying to shift more and more power towards that Q and make her a little bit more of a marksman.
And honestly, I think right now, I would rather see her in the AD carry position than the support. We saw a couple of games from her previously, I think in the last couple of weeks in the support position. Weren't necessarily bad, but I think that right now as an AD carry, she can deal quite a bit of good damage. Like the power shift towards her Q, like you're pointing out, is quite good with some of the consistent damage builds that she's getting. So I hope that they do play it for the AD carry position, can still be flex like you're pointing out, so does give that potential surprise still a go. The Listen though ends up getting picked once again. Feels like a similar game plan with now a different approach, going to be towards that Saya instead of the Tristana, and maybe get more late game value down there. The Rakan though getting banned as well.
Yeah, talk about a surprise. I'm not crazy about this Lee Sin pick here on R3. Thinks that was a great opportunity to take the Rakan. You get the Xayah Rakan duo. It's Mike and Ike's most played champion. Very surprised to see that one not come through here, as now you're going to be pushed into maybe some of the lower tiered pairings with the Xayah. But they really prioritize getting that Lee Sin here. Did do pretty well on it in game 1, did Wiggle Cat, so we'll see what they're going to be able to get done here. Presumably this is an R4 support then. We'll see what they want to pair up with that Xayah. It is going to be the Thresh.
Okay. There was a lot of focus towards the bot lane in terms of bans in this second rotation as well. So the Thresh, one of the champions that has been popping up much more. People like to play it. It gives the potential outplay to go with the support really, really well. So not against the pick here. I do think though that it's not necessarily the best of pairings with the Saya. I think there's way better pairings with Saya than the Thresh that are not banned out. So could have been fun to see it, but it's going to still be a really good champion to get picks going and the Lantern to save some other champions as well. Heimerdinger. So this could be a flex between mid lane and support. I don't think people played mid Heimerdinger, even though I think that it's viable in certain situations, but blindly I wouldn't recommend it. So this is going to be Ashe Heimer bot lane.
That's some old school is not the right thing to say, but that was a big duo at the beginning of the season, right? It's a little bit of a throwback to towards the beginning of the year, where this was a really big duo prior to a couple of nerfs that came through to those champions. Now DEA going to take it into the bottom lane up against this Xayah Thresh duo, and Yone going to be their blind mid laner here for DEA. An interesting choice for sure. Will give them a lot of team fighting power coming later into this game, especially paired up alongside the Gangplank and with all the pick power that your Ashe, Heimerdinger, Gragas get for you. That's going to be plenty of great Yone angles to be found. Let's see what their counter pick is for the side of Nyx. They do take the Syndra.
So I'm not against the Syndra. I think Syndra is a fine enough champion, gives you a lot of magical damage, has a bit more range than that of the Cassiopeia. Still not super high range, but does give you a little bit more range thanks to the Scatter the Weak and some of the changes that she did receive. I was looking forward more to an Orianna just because of the combo that you can pull off with your team particularly. But the Syndra is still a good enough champion. I'm not sure if she does amazingly great into this matchup, particularly being able to just bully him out so effectively that the Yone is suffering in the early lane phases, because after that I think Yone is completely fine into trying to charge into you and kill you. So it's going to be an interesting lane dynamic, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Syndra can just destroy him and not allow for anything to happen. I wanted to focus though a little bit more on the bot lane, because yes, Ashe Heimer, like you were pointing out, was meta for the initial parts of the season, right? And even to a certain degree last year as well was getting played, but it was more so the poke Ashe with the like support build in the AD carry position kind of situation. I think that this is going to be much more of an AD carry attempt from the Xayah with actual damage, but it's still going to be a sort of poke lane so that you can take advantage of your range against the Xayah.
Yeah, I think for sure, you know, you still get to play that pokey kind of identity in the early game. You just maybe can't go for the sort of support build coming into the later games. So expect to see a more standard ADC build out of the Ashe coming into these later game team fights. But I think for sure the game plan is still to harass this Xayah and Thresh in the early game. Know that they're not going to be able to challenge you. I like the Heimerdinger particularly into the Thresh, as well as you can block hooks with your turrets if you're, you know, really have your wits about you and are really ready for those to be coming in. We've seen that come through a couple of times in other Heimerdinger games at LCS and NACL levels. So going to
even here we got one. I think I remember one Heimerdinger game where a turret dive was kind of stopped or something like that with the turret.
I'd buy it. It definitely could have happened. I watch a lot of League of Legends. I can't always be sure exactly what's happened in ACL and what may have happened somewhere else, but I would not be surprised if that's come through. You know, it's a very good way you can utilize Heimerdinger as a counter pick to some of these hook-based champions. So I'm going to be excited to check out that bot lane. Now, looking over at the jungle matchup, Gragas is a champ I also really like into the Lee Sin. He's one of those champs that, you know, he can really interrupt some of the dashes with his body slam that Lee Sin wants to go for. Can again look to neutralize a lot of the early game plays that Lee Sin's like to go for. You know, that's been Gragas' identity forever in top lane as kind of this neutralizing pick. He can do it in the jungle as well against something like Lee Sin, assuming that they path effectively. And that's something that Evil Eyes did really well in game number 1 on the Sejuani. So I'm going to be looking to do something similar here. I don't want to see something similar, though, out of Wigglecat. I want to see some pathing towards mid, some pathing towards bot. It's not looking to get all of the gold funneled into this Ornn in the early game, because as we saw in game number 1, even if you shut down Exaltry, that is not going to be enough to carry you through into these later game fights.
And these are matchups that the Lee Sin can really look to try and get kills into. Mid lane, yes, it's a Yone that gets the shield and can try and dash out of certain situations and things like that, but you have CC to follow you up with the Syndra. You have burst damage with the ultimate as well, so you can try and make something happen in there when the Syndra hits level 6, or even before that, try and blow a flash here and there. And then particularly bot lane is where I want to put the focus on, because you not only have a Xayah, but you're going against double squishy champions. Like, even if they do have poke and they have control of the lane, one hook from the Thresh followed up by a Q from the Lee Sin, it's enough damage to either blow a flash or blow half of their health. So you have potential here to make things happen. I hope that Wigglecat does commit to those sort of plays and is able to make the game go a little bit better in the early game so that the Saya can get really far ahead, the Syndra can get really far ahead, not the Ornn really.
For sure, and still some scaling power here on Nyx. Remember, it's not old Syndra; it's still it's the new Syndra who scales really effectively. You get those Splinters of Wrath to your champion, and you eventually get those new unlocks and the ability to actually be quite a big burst threat. She would be able to one-shot nearly any champion on the side of DEA if you do manage to get to that point and get a couple items under your belt. I'm assuming it's not tank Gragas. Not many folks are building tank Gragas these days. So
at least in the jungle.
Yeah, and so, you have the capacity to really be able to wipe these fights in the later game if you get a good setup with Syndra, if you find some picks with your Ornn and your Thresh. Nyx just has to be able to kind of get themselves to that phase of the game. And in DEA, their scaling is very powerful as well, though, with this Gangplank and with the Yone coming into the later games. So it's going to be a tough one. I mean, I'm really going to be looking for a team to try to get themselves a lead in the early game because it's going to be very hard for whoever's behind to really be able to effectively answer. This is especially true for Nyx, though. If DEA have control over these dragons and these barons, and they can set down their Heimerdinger turrets, they can be poking with Ashe and Gangplank, they are going to be impossible to move off.
It's difficult to try and take a fight when the position is already won. In normal situations, and even more so against teams like this that have so many good setups in before, like the turrets, like the barrels, it's really hard to walk in. Even if you have an Ornn on your side, like one barrel combo can reach your backline and say goodbye to your health bar, say goodbye to any chance to win a fight. It just becomes really easy for DA to force things. So like you're pointing out, they need to try and get leads, they need to try and control walking into objective first. They had a really good set up a vision when we saw, I think it was the third dragon. Remember, it was 3 pink wards and then a lot of vision around. I think it was overkill, but those sort of things is something that if you can layer out appropriately can take away from DEA from really committing and getting things going. So I think Nyx does that have in them to be able to work it out. It's more so in what sort of the state they are when the game comes to those objectives, right? If they are really far behind, then it's a really tough ask to get that sort of vision. But if they are in a really good spot, controlling anything that DEA does is a little bit easier to pull off, and even picks can get a lot of value because there's no true tank on the side of DEA. Like I think you were pointing out with the Gragas not being the traditional tank build, especially in jungle. I think he goes for a little bit even more damage oriented. Any peek from the Thresh can really get you a kill because you have the burst damage on the other sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the kite back game plan here looks pretty good when you have the Xayah. If you can catch them overextending, if the Gragas and the Yone, they're diving a little bit too far into your backline, you've managed to layer down the feathers, you get a good feather storm off, and then you can blade caller back through them. That's another recipe for success that you can find here. And again, that just makes it all the more important that you don't let DEA set up around these objectives first, that you don't let them arrive to the play first, because they have got so much powerful poke on this team composition that it's just going to be impossible for you to find your way into the play. As we are on to the Rift now for game number 2, TDS. DEA up 1-0 over Nyx Esports, looking to close this one out.
They really are going to try and close it out here. They want to, because they need to get this victory here and hope that no other result go against them so that they can still be in the running for the future. They are really trying to get control over this bot side. Well, they understand that if Hammer gets control over these bushes, it's essentially impossible to try and contest against him. But not going to turn into much. They are not going to commit. I'm kind of sad I love level 1s. I think I've talked about it a lot. I love when people commit to level 1s, but it's not going to be one of those chances here.
Not against Heimerdinger, man. You've got a 5-man bot against the Heimerdinger. Otherwise, he's just going to lawyer down the turrets. He's going to, take full control of the lane. And Otek's going to try to do that anyway. I don't think he can avoid vision on that bush. Yeah, they're pinging. I see a lot of pings on that mini-map, but Pokemon going to have to step up here. Going to have to clear out the turret. Going to lose some health. Going to give some gold over to Otek, though. We'll call that a small win for DEA.
It's enough. I think that 4 starters can turn into something really valuable. Maybe even more here. One more. Let's go. Extra damage.
That's a bold choice from Kokma there. Is going to have to chug a potion before the minion waves hit. just because of that poke damage that came through here. Arcane Comet from Oteg plus Andox just having that volley at level 1 really does hurt the squishy Zaya early on in the game. Ooh, Ops. Nearly not getting those minions there is going to take some harass from Potato Senpai as well.
The kind of thing that you have to take advantage of when you're playing the range against the melee matchup, right? So every sort of little poke that you get, it's always going to be good against Bobs. Bob's taking quite a bit of damage. Each lane is really poking against each other, but you can really see the huge value that you get down there when the side A is this low already, blowing through pots. It started with 4, now down to 2 really early on.
For sure. Good damage, although Mike and Ike lands a nice hook there, gets some good damage onto Andox, and that's going to offset all the potions in the world, TDS, as the flash has to get blown out of Andox, and they're going to have to play on the back foot here. They've got some cookies to eat, try to regen that health back up, but definitely a great start here for Nyx now as they manage to get a big chunk out of the enemy AD carry.
100%, and really that was one of the few chances when you really can get things going. Wait a sec, Potato.
Early gank here. That's going to be the flash, but it's met in turn. Great predict from Evil Eyes. First blood comes through to Degenerate's Azkull.
And you can really see he was playing for that predict with the body slam and the flash. Both flashes down, but it's the first blood for the Yone particularly. I think it's more valuable to have it on the Yone than on the Gragas because of how much harassment the Syndra was able to get in the mid lane. So with this now, making it a little bit easier for this Yone, maybe even putting a little bit more pressure on the Syndra. And you can see I really like that we're getting this replay because look at that. He was aiming for it since the start. Perfect timing, perfect execution, and forces the kill in such a good way.
Roll the I will dominate clip, TDS. A great prediction off of that body slam from Evil Eyes. And there's that turret block, by the way. We saw it come out of Oteg there. Didn't have too much of a difference either way, but I mean, if Oteg got hit by that hook, would have made quite a bit of damage come through onto the DEA support. So nice played there to block that one out. Did Yobaseo actually just steal away the blue buff? It looked like he did on the mini-map, but Oteg getting engaged on there, looking to focus everything down onto Kokma. Andox has got that true shot stayed up and is going to be able to finish it off, but it is going to be a trade back from Mike and Ike as they go 1-for-1 on the bottom side. Oteg now stepping up here, blocks the turret again, or blocks the hook with the turret, rather. Meanwhile, Yobaseo coming into the mid lane, looking for a little bit of a play here, but cannot chase him underneath the turret, and it looks like it's just going to be that 1-for-1.
It ends up being a 1-for-1. Kill does go to the Ashe compared to the Cyan not getting that kill. Another potential gank here in the mid lane, by the way. Good push.
Push back onto Pops. Exaltry, actually with a level lead over Toxic now, turning the matchup around. Gets a good trade there. A little bit down in CS, but feeling much better in this game where he was able to get the Sheen early on and teleport back. Evil Eyes maybe up a little bit far, getting collapsed on by 3 members. Yoboseo's already on the other side. The hook comes through from Mike and Ike, and that's going to be another kill taken by the Thresh. Nyx Esports looking to carry through the support position this game.
Really trying hard through that Mike Knight with the 2 kills. And I gotta say, Evil Eyes a little bit too greedy with the sort of approaches he was taking there, because Yobaseo just entered the bush, there's absolutely no vision, and saw the Gragas. The Gragas didn't go in, so that means that you're just waiting for him to pull off the play. Mike Knight in a great spot, and it turns out into a good kill for the side of Nyx. The gold lead is still not super far ahead in favor of Nyx, but so far at least they are combating really well to the early plays that DA are looking for, and are getting good value out of that.
Definitely are, and are going to keep the gold pretty much dead even as a result of those plays. Yobaseo coming in this game number 2, playing the same champion as his counterpart, is doing pretty well so far. As Exaltry going to get flashed on by Toxic Sub there to interrupt the recall. That's one way to play. Oteg stepping up, going to get a big stun here. Kokma's got nowhere to go, and Evil Eyes gonna detonate the barrel. A double kill comes over. 1 over to Evil Eyes, 1 over to Andox. And just like that, DEA are building up a huge lead through the bottom lane.
Talk about easy execution out there. They just put down the ultimate, they just get the stun, and they get the kill in a really easy manner. And I think Sultry is now happy about the back cancel, because that means that now he gets to buy even better. But as you can see here, it doesn't walk in. Lee Sin is already inside. There's no vision at all. Not even inside of the river. So they know that there's absolutely no way that they are going to be spotted here. Gragas just commits to the play, which I think for junglers, it's not that weird for them to do this sort of thing. But if someone is in the bush, like Yobosayo was already there, it's your death. It's a really good setup that Nyx pulled off there.
Really is. And that early start there, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that flash from Toxic Sub. I mean,
it's to send a message.
The message has been sent, TDS, and it's just it's a confusing message. I don't know what it means.
It's a message too high level for us to understand. Okay. We are merely casters. We're not Toxic Sub's level just yet.
You know what? That's fair enough, I suppose. And now looking to keep on harassing up against Kokma. There has been a substantial CS lead built up by Kokma and Mike and Ike here. It's going to get offset by those kills for the time being. But see as this lane continues to play out, as they certainly do seem to be managing to deny a fair bit of CS towards this Ashe.
Which is kind of surprising to see. Typically, you see the double range lane be the one that forces out the Sai out of position. Toxic Sub, no flash.
Hearing charge already used. Where's your flash, bud? What happened? As Toxic Sub is going to get the double knockup, though, looking to turn this back around.
Oh.
A good eat of the oranges there from Exultry will be just enough HP to stay alive, and Exultry going to finish off that kill. It's now Yobosayo looking to turn this one back around, get some good damage on the Evil Eyes, but just gets belly bumped back in and can't dive the turret here up against these two. Going to just have to look at those two juicy low HP targets and back over towards the wave. Oh, the double flash! Yobosayo reads the play! Beautiful move there from the Lee Sin. Nyx Esports gets one back.
Lee Sin mechanics, baby. Look at that. Just going in for the play, gets the kill, and turns a situation that was looking bad into a good one. Really good job by Yobosayo. Performing really, really well on the Lee Sin so far. And okay, we get replay. I thought we were going to get the full replay, but this replay shows the last bit, the level difference. 5 to 6.
Oh my god.
Essentially point blank flash. At the same time, getting that down. I will say though, I think with level 6 Gragas there, you probably do get the trade kill because of the damage of the burst with the cannon, with the Q from the Gangplank coming in, but played it out really, really well, takes advantage of the level lead, and gets the kill back. So, equaling the game in a really interesting manner, not yet at 1k gold lead for either side.
Fully downloaded there, TDS. I'm going to be watching that playback later. Yobosayo, what a fantastic start for him here, as he manages 100%. To pick up that kill up against Evil Eyes. Oh, getting the reset off, coming back out onto the map. Pop's taking a fair bit of harass here from Potato Senpai. Makes Esports looking at a little bit of control as they move over towards this Rift Herald. I see the pings.
They want to get it, and I respect trying to play around it, especially with some of the leads that they already have. They do have a say in trying to collect that Rift Herald as soon as possible. Probably not going to get contested though. I think Yone is not yet strong enough to go for it. Gangplank as well is trying to answer to the farm. He's really far behind in terms of CS, so probably not the best of decisions there. And then on the bot lane, I think that they could have tried and put a little bit more pressure against the Saya, so it's going to be uncontested here.
For sure. Looks like they will be able to net this one for themselves. Exultry still just getting pushed underneath this turret, trying to pick up whatever farm he can. And now the invade into the jungle here. Yobosayo wants to take this a step further with Mike and Ike for backup. Kokma, though, gets left alone in the bottom lane, taking a fair bit of harass from Andox, and will be stuck underneath their turret for a little while. Evil Eyes plus Exultry plus the turret, just a little bit too scary. The dive won't be able to come through from the Nyx Esports squad.
And Ashe Arrow as well, it's on cooldown right now, not sure where it was used, but you also have to consider the Ashe Arrow if it's up, because any sort of super long range Ashe Arrow gets hit under the turret, you're essentially dead, because you get stunned way too long. So they need to be a little bit more respectful how they approach this. They are doing a lot of damage to Kog'Maw, and we're finally seeing the value of the double range, right?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. In the 1 versus 2, that's where you feel the difference the most.
Yeah.
Kog'Maw going to get forced pretty far back here. They are getting tons of damage onto those plates. They've already picked up one for themselves and are going to look for a second one here on this next wave. Yobosayo is on the bottom side of the map along with Mike and Ike. They're going to look to prevent that if they can.
We punt quite a bit to this top lane, and there's going to be an engage.
Toxic Sub looking for the solo kill. He's got it very close to it at least. There's going to be the searing charge. The trade of flashes, and Toxic Sub picks up the solo kill.
And I feel like if he doesn't stop for that auto attack, probably can escape. But finally, it pays off. The aggression from Toxic Sub does end up netting them a kill in a really nice fashion. Meanwhile, on the bot side, they are collecting this dragon. Not sure if it's going to get contested. It's a little bit too difficult with the vision control that they have.
And props to Toxic Sub there. We BM'd the first flash. We got to give praise to the second one. He does pick up the solo kill and plenty of gold for himself off that one, and continues to try to set Exaltry behind. Now going to be a dragon across the map for DEA off of that one. They are looking to keep on stacking up. Looks like it is going to be Cloud Soul for this game number 2.
You know what? I think the flash from Toxic Sub, the first one, was all to bait everyone so that the second one could be such a highlight flash and get the kill. I think that was the play initially.
We've seen some flashes on both ends of the spectrum this game. I'll certainly say that, as Yobosio is hovering in this alcove. Mike and Ike kind of showing that he's there with the Dark Passage, and they are going to show now. Nice dodge away from Evil Eyes to prevent the Scatter of the Weak from stunning him. They will be able to go in for this recall now. Meanwhile, Pops PH has gotten some alone time with the mid lane turret and a beautiful explosive cast. Double stuns come through, stuck inside the cannon barrage. And Dox finishes off 1 kill, and Evil Eyes chasing the rest of the way down, showing why this Gragas was banned in game number 1 as Yobosio tries to flash away, barely avoids the volley, and will stay alive. But that Summoner's blown from Nyx. That's a kill over to DEA, and that is going to be plenty of pressure in this bottom lane.
Wait, Pops. Okay, nothing. Yeah. There was an attempt. He tried.
We did. Just making sure that the Nyx Esports representatives are playing respectfully. You know, you go for a little bit of a lazy recall there, you end up giving a kill over to Yone. They do pass that test, though.
Let's say, though, in the meanwhile, they do lose quite a bit of plates in the mid lane. They're still getting the push under the turret, so they can kind of answer the plates lost down there in the bot lane, as well as in the top lane. But all in all, the plates that DA have been pulling up really, really good. Evil Eyes proactively has been really great to see, and even ready to answer some of the plays on that Yobosio wants to try and pull off, right? So really respectful of the Listen now after that initial blunder, and really good to give the leads to his team. They are going to lose this. Okay, they didn't lose the full turret. I thought they were going to lose it.
Think that as well, but do not end up dropping it, at least on this wave, but this next one might do it. Potato Senpai going to finish off that turret, and that will be first turret gold over to Nyx. So gonna get the gold pretty close to even off that, but now Kokma left alone to the bottom lane once again, gonna have to avoid these slows and stuns, or else risk losing a huge chunk of HP. Will be able to hide back under the turret, and here comes Mike and Ike to give the support.
Didn't get hit, so at the end doesn't lose that much health, which is good for Kokmo, but he's still going to suffer with that poke from both sides. And by the way, just quick thing, it is going to be the Ashe AD carry. I already got the angling from the runes, but now with the shield bow, pretty much just setting it up.
Definitely going for that more traditional AD carry setup.
I like it.
With the lethal tempo, Kokma taking a fair bit of damage here, and is at risk of getting forced off this turret. Good damage from Andox. Evil Eyes is here as well. Meanwhile, Exaltry on the top side getting ganked right back to game number 1 status as Yobosio finishes off that kill. As Oteg is actually getting pushed underneath the turret by that fresh hook, but it is going to be a 1-for-1 as Andox goes on a killing spree and takes Mike and Ike out. 3rd kill of the game to the support. Kokomo's just got to be beside himself, man. I can't get any of this gold.
You really can. Like, it's so difficult to be the side here, even though it's been doing a good job at trying to farm, right? It's still close in terms of CS, but the kills just keep on coming for this Ashe. The poke is coming so effectively, and even though it's a 2-for-1 in the overall context, because they did lose Exaltry on the top lane, they do lose the bot lane turret, and that's a bit of gold going into the Ashe once again.
And this is where you start to get a little bit frustrated in the Discord, right? It's like, Mike and Ike, man, you owe me 900 gold, my guy. You blasted a few too many kills now, and I'm really starting to feel it in my itemization. Andox has got the Berserker Greaves completed, has got the Vampiric Scepter, working their way towards what looks like it's probably going to be a Hydra. Well, and meanwhile, Kokomo's still just working on those books too, still just working on those boots too.
Really is the difference between items right now. Oteg, my dude.
4 levels down to this big Ornn. Potato Senpai gonna come through and pick up that kill, getting some extra splinters of wrath that way, and that makes it a 5 versus 4. potentially for this upcoming dragon here. Oteg will be back up in time, but we'll have to walk back over here, and this means they've lost full pressure around this bottom side river. All the vision going to be going over to Nyx. Meanwhile, Exaltry trading for a turret on the top side.
Well, once again, for DEA, they rolled the good dragons, because right now it's going to be Cloud Soul, which means that they don't really need to contest. They already collected 2. Oh, Andox. No flash.
Gonna get knocked up here. Fires out the Enchanted Crystal Arrow to stop the engage from Potato on the side. Very smart heads-up play there from Andox. Realizes
100%.
that the collapse is coming and stops it in its tracks.
That was a really smart decision there by Andox. Had just the ghost to try and run away, so even though without the flash, if you're able to stop the damage there, gives you enough time to get away from that Ornn. And meanwhile, I really like this decision by DEA. They get 2 turrets in the top lane for just the Cloud Dragon traded down there in the bot side. So even though the kill from Oteg ends up being a difference maker to try to collect this dragon, the overall map play is better managed by DEA. They probably won't get this turret with this push, but they are doing such a good job at trying to keep pressure all around the map, much more effectively than Nyx at least.
Yeah, Toxic Sub coming in here along with Exaltry. It is going to be close to 5 members each of the mid. Though Pops is still in the bottom, so it's a 5 versus 4. Nyx want to capitalize on that flash death sentence, but can't find a target. But they don't need one. Scatter the weak lanes on Oteg, and he drops for the 3rd time this game. Going to be another kill. This time, Kokoma actually does cash out and get it. Going to be happy about that one.
Once again, really sad to see Oteg died like that, but like you're pointing out on Nyx's side, Kokoma gets the first kill of the game for himself, finally being able to get on board, finally get some damage onto this Saya, going to be quite important. And look at that, being able to fight back in terms of some of those items against this Ashe. Has yet to back the Ashe though, so probably going to be much better for her once she backed, but at this point at least you will have some similar damage output to her.
Well, Might moving up towards mid here. Andox just going to look to continue farming up these minions. Going to be looking to prepare for what could be first Baron fight in about a minute here. Going to be the next objective on the map. Meanwhile, Potato Senpai looking for an angle onto Exaltry. Gets a nice stun off, but can't land the follow-up damage. And it doesn't quite have enough in the tank to work their way through this gangplank.
It's not the first time we've seen Potato Senpai onto Exaltry, though. It's the 2nd game in a row, both times trying to kill this poor gangplank that is just trying to farm out. Toxic Sub waiting here really aggressively.
Popes going to be caught out here. There's going to be the attempt to dash away. He's in the Soul Unbound, and now in a 1 versus 3 tries to flash, but gets caught by the death sentence. And that's going to be another kill picked up for Toxic Sub. Nyx Esports catches Pops with his pants down.
Really good play there by Nyx, waiting so long for it to work out. Oh, Oteg.
Going to be landing the stuns. They've got the damage landed, but it's on the Toxic Sub. He's still at half HP. That was a full combo from both Heimerdinger and Gragas. He's just waltzing away from it. The flash to follow. The flash from Toxic Sub to get out. He's walking away, man. There's no way you're catching this Ornn.
What was the purpose of that flash? There was no
flashes,
chance
baby.
to kill. It's just really weird to see, but at the same time, both of them end up out with their lives, so I don't think it's necessarily that bad. Yes, you lose your flash, but now next time when Ornn wants to go for anything, he doesn't have flash, so he can't escape. Maybe. I think that's the logic.
I guess. I mean, listen, sometimes I play a lot of Gragas 2DS. I'll fess up to it here. Sometimes you just want to land the flash body slam, man. It just feels good. A bit of dopamine from being able to land that combo. On the Ornn, who is also going to flash away from you, maybe not.
But the thing is, you want to get the kill, no? With your flash combo. So like, does it make sense to make it against the Ornn? Is my make argument here. Do you kill the Ornn? Oh,
no.
Oteg may die though.
Okay, maybe kill Oteg though. Evil Eye is going to have to dash over the wall to keep themselves safe. Kokoma hiding back out into the jungle, going to move themselves up towards that Baron buff. As probably can't start it up quite yet, but is at least going to be able to push Evil Eyes out of his own jungle.
But this is kind of a good showing of something that we were talking about in draft. The fact that the game is not like too far gone on either side gives Nyx the opportunity to walk into the enemy jungle, maybe try and get picks, vision control. not allow DEA to get a lot of room to do whatever the hell they want. And that is a really good thing for Nyx, because that means that they will get opportunities to try and get leads or get back in control of the lead and then turn that into objectives later on in the game. It's just how they are able to play around it. But so far, I like that they are at least able to find those avenues inside of the enemy jungle. Like, even you could see the vision inside of the enemy jungle. There's some big wards that can end up mattering quite a bit. Oh no, Exaltary.
Exaltary getting knocked up here, going to be all alone in the 1 versus 2, and Yobosayo going to go on a killing spree. They successfully camp the gangplank yet again. Toxic Sub now going to have to teleport up towards the top side because they're at risk of losing the Baron here. If the EA have their way, Oteg avoiding the stuns coming through. It is a 4 versus 5 here once Yobosayo gets up, but he is the smite, and he is so far away. They're working their way through this Baron, and they will be able to smite it in time. Now it's just on them to make the escape or to find the engage on a Potato Senpai. Great enchanted crystal arrow to save the fight there, but now Andox is stuck in the pit, and the fight is being lost as the damage rains through from Kokma. Will get traded back onto from Pops, though, as it's a 3 for 3 when all is said and done, and 2 carries are still standing for DEA. Toxic Sub gonna have to charge his way out of there, and this is a big lead for DEA as they pop down the Baron buff.
And now I'm not sure if they can go for the Baron, because they do have teleport on Pops. They have teleport on Exaltary. They can try and force the dragon by themselves. They don't have the smite, yes, but they can stop the dragon attempts on the side of Nyx. The Baron ends up mattering quite a bit. Yes, it's just on 2 members, but one of them has a split push potential.
Yobosayo a little bit caught out here, went maybe perhaps too aggressive as the knockback in for the Dragon's Rage. Pop's gonna just snap back to his soul, and that's gonna be a lot of health in the Dragon's Rage used, but Yobosayo will be safe for now. Now going to be the Dragon in their eyes once again. DEA, their stacking has been delayed a little bit from giving one over to Nyx, but they got a couple of turrets out of it before. Now going to look to resume where they left off and get themselves on soul point, but Exaltary gets hooked, can just eat some oranges and cleanse out of it. Follow-up stun, no more oranges left.
Should be fine.
Gonna have to move back out into the river.
Exaltary with oranges at least takes away some of that CC, so doesn't get perma CC there. But with the control that they got thanks to that Baron buff, a couple of kills here and there, they get control back over on the bot side, and they're able to pull off the dragon. Once again, it's a Cloudtoll. It's not the most valuable soul, but it's still gaining control over the map that you really worry about in this situation. Ooh, Ash Arrow. It's a cleanse.
An attempted barrel, not quite going to land as Evil Eyes is getting engaged on Yobosayo. Going to be alone here, steps up and looking for the kill on Evil Eyes, lands another Sonic Wave, and Kokma going to be able to finish off that kill. So now Oteg is going to be the one who's caught away, but has Pops there for backup. Dive in onto Potato Senpai, who is going to go into the stasis, but will be going down before too long as Pops goes on a killing spree. That's going to be a 4-on-4 on the map, 1-for-1 trade. Evil Eyes for Potato Senpai. Meanwhile, the whole way through, Exaltary is still pushing on the bot lane.
It's like, even though the idea from Nyx is not bad, they force a play. Oh, wait a second.
Forward from Pops. He wants the kill, and he's going to get it. Goes on a rampage, but Yobosayo wants to take the fight further, dashing forward onto Oteg over the wall. Goes the Lee Sin, and Nyx, they're just getting a little too aggressive with it, and they're giving up so much on the bot side for it. They are going to end up losing their inhibitor turret and now just have to try whatever they can to stop Exaltary. They do get a big knockup, but Kokma maybe a little bit too far away. This Gangplank just going to keep walking away as long as he can. And now Pops dashes over the wall and finds himself in between 2 members, focusing onto Kokma, and does manage to take him out. This Yone is fully online TDS, and there is nothing anybody can do to stop him as he dashes back in once again. That might be something somebody can do to stop him as the shutdown comes through for Potato Senpai.
Wanted more than he can chew, ends up paying the price with life. Wait, no, Oteg had nothing to do there, man. Please.
This Yobosayo trying to get something a little bit back. Takes a lot of damage, though. That's the big turret coming down. Oteg can't get the blast code. Will go down. Nyx Esports, they're finding some scraps on the way out. Maybe DEA overstaying just a little bit. But Evil Eyes, they're here to punish, man. Who's going to stop overextending first? It's not going to be DEA as they get the shutdown onto Yobosayo, his first death of the game.
It's so sad that Oteg's death ends up mattering for Evil Eyes to get the shutdown there, but he pays for the price for the sins of his mid laner. At the end of the matter, though, when you think in the overall context of the chaotic mess that we've seen in the last couple of minutes, right? Turrets went down quite a bit in DEA's favor. They got inhibitor turret on bot side. They got 2 turrets in the mid lane. They got the dragon as well. They got so much value off of the Baron buff that started off of a really good pick on Exaltry, and it's a really nice showing of good map play coming in from DEA, because even though there's a lot of chaos and a lot of random plays that end up turning into kills, the actual objective value goes in favor of DEA and not into Nyx.
Sure. Going to be about a 5k gold lead now for DEA, and they have it where they want it to. A lot of it's on Pops. A lot of money on Evil Eyes as well. Can't be upset about that. Plenty on Andox, and a flash forward from Exaltry. Feeling himself here. Wants to take out the Syndra. But with Kokoma there to fend him off, it is just going to be that trade of flashes.
Looking at it objectively, flash for flash, when the Syndra now doesn't have flash after every engage that has happened, probably better for DEA. Ooh,
good knockup landed on Yobosayo, but not quite ready with the follow-up. Fate Seal doesn't get committed by Pops, so we'll be able to dash back out. Oh, but there it goes. Pops doesn't find any targets here and is just going to have to snap back.
Doesn't get much value there, but Yoni's ultimate has quite a bit of a low cooldown, so it's not like it's going to be the worst situation for you there. Still, Pops doing quite a bit of damage. Ooh. He's fine. See, he's fine.
Yeah, just spending a lot of time disconnected from the soul there. Looking for whatever poke damage they can find, and not too long of a cooldown on the Fate Sealed, so we'll likely have that up again in time for a potential Baron fight in 30 seconds. Meanwhile, Exaltry back to his old business of split pushing in the bottom lane.
Yeah, he's doing just fine on the side. Really likes playing the PvE game, just able to push waves, collect farm, get gold, be able to fight. That's certainly great for Exaltry down there in the bot side. They're quite a bit of members up here in the top side, maybe trying to answer for the Baron that is spawning soon. But I think that if you leave Exaltry alone against the Syndra, it's going to be risky. You can really one-shot the Syndra if she's not careful enough.
Yeah, but you forget, TDS, Nyx was the victim of a Baron sneak in game number 1. They do not want to leave this unguarded for too long. It got 2-man last game, now it's getting 4-man this game, and once again, they are not going to be able to get here in time. A nice double stun grenade from OTAG going to halt any attempt at an engage, and DEA are going to waltz away with a free Baron buff.
You talked about the Baron Rush last game. Let's talk about the Baron Rush this game. Once again, they are able to pull it off so well. They want to get this dragon, but I think they're too late for it.
They popped Shirelia's to try to get onto Exaltry, but that barrel damage, throwing down the follow-up with the Cannon Barrage. It is actually going to be a cost of a death on towards Potato Senpai, and now going to be a 5 versus 4. Plenty of health done. Taken out here for the side of DEA, though, and Nyx going to potentially have to step away. But meanwhile, the split push on the top. This is a 3 versus 4 that DEA is looking for here, but they're positioning very well. They've done so much damage on a Toxic Sub. Flash forward from Evil Eyes, can't quite find a target for his explosive cask, and is going to melt down to Yobosayo, but Andox, as in game number 1, gains so much and is just so much damage on the Ashe, and he's got OTAG for the backup on the poke. Flash over the wall from OTAG. Meanwhile, Pops still pushing in the base here, and nobody going to be able to recall as long as OTAG is on duty, preventing those recalls from coming through. There's going to be the onto Yobosayo. Toxic Sub going to finally be able to take out the Heimerdinger, but it's going to be at the cost of Mike and Ike as well, and Andox is going to find him in the 3 versus 4. DEA have found their angles into the fight, and they take every single one of them down. Meanwhile, the split push on the top has been thwarted.
They were way too desperate to try and stop the backs, and now they have the Gangplank joining in. They have a huge minion wave, and the Saya has no flash nor ultimate. I think they can try and make this rush to try and end the game. It's 13 seconds still for the Syndra. They have enough damage.
Oh, Kokoma getting dived onto by the Soul Unbound. That's probably going to do it here, TDS. 3 seconds to go on Potato Senpai, but that's 3 seconds too late as DEA are going to take this series 2-0.
They finally are able to close it out. Took them quite a bit this game. They still rushed the dragon. They still found their openings. That huge burst of damage from the Gangplank. I feel like at that point, Gangplank, yes, died, but he was at least going to take someone down with himself. But it really didn't matter if he didn't kill anyone because the damage was done. Forced everyone into really low health. Saya had to back. Thresh was in a bad spot. Then even with 3 members, they were able to force them in a lockdown while the Yone was split pushing in the top lane. And even if Saya was there, if she missteps, she ends up dying. She has to flash away from the Bound Soul, or I don't remember the name of the ultimate, but the ultimate, yeah, from the ultimate to be able to know that. yeah, Fate Seal to not die. And everything just ends up mattering so much because now the people cannot back to base. They end up in a really bad spot and they end up paying the price with losing the game. It was chaotic, not gonna lie, but it was still controlled to a certain degree.
Yeah, and let's take a look back on how this
beautiful.
last Dragon play played out. Exaltry gets real confident after landing that barrel chain, maybe a little too confident as he loses his life here, and this puts the EA in that unfavorable numbers position that they have to fight their way out of.
But because of the gold, it really didn't matter. Like, look at the health from Mike Knight, and as well as Potatoes and Pie. He's in a really awful spot, taking so much poke damage from far away, and Otek kind of feels like a secondary mage in this position, right? Like, even though he's not the main mid laner, he has the damage to be able to deal with some of those champions. Does so much in this fight. I want to see the flash over the wall, because we panned away from it, but he flashes over the wall on the side just to kill Potatoes and Pie. It's amazing.
Otek realizes his role in life at this moment, flashes the wall, just says, look, we're here to pick up kills, interrupt recalls, baby. We're pressuring Nexus turrets right now, and we are not going to be stopped. Good hook, though, does manage to net one back here, but then the cleanup is still available. And, ooh, the turret even does a little bit more there.
Ends up getting the second one there just to put the cherry on top for Otek. And then here, the cleanup is so easy for Andax. That's why I really like the way that they played around the dragon, because this dragon really matters absolutely nothing for them. Yes, it's a good placebo objective to collect. It's something that can work out for you and maybe force the Elder that is an actual objective that you care about. But realistically, it's more valuable to force the enemy team into a bad spot. Because in the meanwhile, while we were watching the replay, Unit was split pushing. And that's 4 actual objectives that will matter in the long run. And really like how they play around it.
For sure. Shout out to Nyx for keeping that game number 2 close, but it is Degenerates Azkull that take it in a 2-0 victory and are still keeping themselves just a little bit alive here. It's a long shot, but they have a chance to make the playoffs now off the back of that win. They play UCI JV next week. A win there, as well as some favorable results around the rest of the bracket. You know, teams like Nameless Zephyr, teams like UCI JV themselves, they're sitting at 3 wins right now as we speak. If you can take them down, if you can get yourself that better game record, you do have the chance to be able to snatch one of those playoff spots and get yourself in there, despite the rough early start that Degenerates Azkull have had for themselves. Well, we'll have to wait until next week to see if they're going to be able to do that. But that is going to do it for tonight's broadcast. This is the only series we've got here at TDS. So thank you all for tuning in. We're going to be back throughout this week with more Aegis Leagues, and we will be back next week for the final week of the regular season for the Aegis Champions League. Excited to see you all there, but until then, from myself, TDS, and Caddy on production, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.